Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cold plants and author saving the world with the home garden. And today we have the honor and privilege of having the Texas dad of the Texas Boys YouTube and the TexasBoys.com website, where they teach a lot of gardening lessons, they teach a lot of life lessons, and they also have a brand of several different products, which we're going to get into towards the end of this lesson. And today's topic is how to root your cuttings, as this is Ivory Organics' 5th free annual fig cutting giveaway. And we're happy that the Texas dad was able to donate several dozen of the Violette de Sollies fig cuttings towards this year's free fig cutting giveaway, which I hope you guys are all participating in. That lesson was published on February 1st, so look for that YouTube lesson that was also shared on Ivory Organic Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And be sure to participate in this, as it's a chance to get delicious and some of the best varieties of fig cuttings in the country in your backyard. And without any further ado, I'd love to introduce you to the Texas dad, and I'm looking forward to you teaching us about the best ways to root our now new fig cuttings that we're all receiving.
Hey, thanks, Charles. I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm very glad that I could participate in the cuttings giveaway. We'll be talking about the Food 401K later, but it's all about, the Food 401K is all about paying it forward. And I think the fig cutting giveaway is a super awesome way to pay it forward. So I'm glad I could participate. Thanks for having me, and thanks for having me on today.
Of course. I just got to add, just to make sure all of you guys get past learning all of these tips that we're going to learn from the Texas dad on how to root your fig cuttings. He is, as you mentioned, going to discuss the 401k, the food 401k, as well as DirtCoin. We've all heard of Bitcoin, and I checked today, the market price is about $37,000 per stock. But there's something that's equally valuable, and that's called DirtCoin. We're also going to learn about the Texas dad and his family, and how his children are involved in the propagation of trees on his property, as well as in the process of selling a lot of their plants through the Texas Boys website. And also, of the 400 plus fruit trees they have planted, over 100 of those are fig trees. And we're going to learn why figs are such an important asset to the Texas Boys homestead. And with that, the floor is yours.
So what I want to show you all today is one of the several methods that I use to root fig cuttings. There are several methods that are very successful, and I do several methods, but the Jiffy peat, Jiffy sells a compressed peat pellet. And what you do, this is how I root my cuttings. Also, all the different cuttings that we sell on our website, we give you the option if you want to purchase the peat pellets with the cuttings. So what you do with the peat pellet is you put it in warm water to fully hydrate it, and it will expand. And you can see that it expands about 4 times its size. So you got your peat pellet. I give it a little bit of a squeeze just to get the excess water out of it. And then you take your fig cutting here, and this is a really nice fig cutting, and it's got it's a top cut with a bud. And the main thing with fig cuttings and propagation, it's all about controlling the moisture. And the thing with controlling the moisture with figs is, with a cutting, before I start to root it, I will take some parafilm or buddy tape, and I will encapsulate the top of the cutting with the parafilm or buddy tape. And what this is doing is this is preserving the moisture in the cutting. And that's going to extend the life of the cutting, and it's going to allow it to put its energy into the rooting process. So the first thing you want to do, and there's lots of different methods. If this didn't have a top bud and this had a top cut, you could use wood glue. There's lots of different ways to seal this cutting. You can use wax. I do that as well. So now I've enclosed the top of the cutting. What I'm going to do is I've already sterilized. You always want to sterilize your utensils. I use 3% peroxide, just a standard peroxide that you buy at any CVS or wherever. I'm going to put a fresh cut on the bottom. And the big thing about rooting is the predominance of your roots are always going to be near the node and right here at this little ringlet here. So you always want to concentrate. So if you're going to score your cutting or anything, you're going to want to do it right there. Because when you take your cuttings out, you're going to notice that the predominance of the roots are probably going to be coming out here right where it's notched and right at that joint. So you want to expose some more cambium. And I do want to say this, I'm not a technical guy. I'm a kind of mad scientist. I try a bunch of different methods, and I've changed my method several times. I do the fig pop method, and it's just a little 4-inch U-line bag, and you can put growing medium in it. And I've done that successfully. This is a homemade, it's made out of a Ziploc bag, and this is 100% vermiculite. And this cutting is rooting in there successfully. So there's lots of different ways to do it. But the Jiffy Peat method, where it's kind of all contained, it's kind of like more idiot proof, so to speak. It's much more user friendly, I'll put it that way. So you have your cutting prepped. If you want, you do not have to. If you want, you can use a product like Dip and Grow, which is a rooting hormone, and you can put some rooting hormone on this. It's not necessary. If you have a more difficult cutting that's very difficult to root, I would definitely recommend using a rooting hormone on that. I've had more success with the liquid rooting hormones than with the powdered rooting hormones. So you have your hydrated Jiffy pellet, you have your prepared fig cutting. You're just going to take any kind of, you can use a Sharpie or whatever. You do not want your cutting to go all the way to the bottom of your Jiffy. So you want it to go like 3/4 of the way down. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball that. I'm going to take my my Sharpie. You're going to create a cavity where your cutting's going to go. Then you're going to take your cutting. You're just going to insert it into your peat. And then what I do is I just kind of give it a squeeze, because you want to make sure that you're getting contact. You want that soil medium, you want that peat to fully touch the cutting. You don't want a pocket of air in there, because if there's a pocket of air in there, it's not going to root. And now the water challenge is for the cutting is keeping the proper humidity, because if you let this dry out, it's going to prohibit or retard the rooting process. So one thing you can do that I have done when I use when you use a Jiffy peat like this, is you can use a tote with a lid, or a much simpler method, you can just use a Ziploc bag, and this will act like a freestanding humidity dome. And I don't seal the top of it. I leave the top open, and you can even see that this one's budding out, and it's got some shoots going on it. And there's lots of roots. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. There's lots of roots coming out of the Jiffy peat. So now this isn't quite ready to up pot, but it's getting close. I would say in 2 more weeks, this will be ready to up pot. But the challenge is, while it's rooting, is you want to maintain this humidity, but you don't want so much humidity that you will get mold. So that's kind of like the delicate dance and the part of the part art, part science of propagation. And that's what you learn by experience of just doing it. And that's why you just got to dive in and do it. So once you're in a Jiffy peat pellet, you can put this in a plastic tote with a lid and just regulate the moisture level by opening and closing the lid. Or you can just use a Ziploc bag. And this method works for, here I have mulberries, and these are done exactly the same way. And I just regulate the humidity in the Ziploc bag. And I like this method. And I just put this in a kitchen cabinet. So it's It's real easy for anybody to do, regardless of how much space you have, whether you're you can do this in an apartment or wherever you are. So that's my rooting method. Then once I get it to an area where it has enough roots, the one thing I do with the Jiffy pellet, just from experience, is I will score, once there's roots all coming out of this thing, I will score this sack just to allow it to continue to properly biodegrade, because I've had some that have kind of gotten bound up in here. So I'll take a razor knife and score this for because the next step is you take your cutting like this and you go to up pot it. And this is where I introduced the all-purpose fertilizer that Ivy Organics has, and this is a killer fertilizer. I'll give you a quick testimony on the fertilizer. And this bottom bud graft on January 15th was probably about this long. And 2 weeks ago, I mixed up a tablespoon of, I have the before picture too. I'll probably share this picture with you, Charles. But I mixed up a tablespoon of this in just maybe less than 16 ounces of water. And from the 15th till now, this has grown an easy 8 to 10 inches. And all I did was just do a little shot of the Ivy Organics fertilizer. So this stuff is absolutely incredible. It is like super growth here. It's pretty awesome. So I'm super excited. I love the Ivy Organics. So what I do is I use a Pro Mix, a prepackaged. When I go to Up Pot, I like this Pro Mix, and you can buy this even at most Walmarts. And this is pre-compressed. This is only like $10. This is a real nice mix. It's got some micro-rise in it, and it's pre-mixed with perlite. So what I do is I take my cutting, I put it in here with my potting soil, and then I mix my all-purpose organic fertilizer, and then I water the cutting. And now now you can put this, I keep mine on a windowsill, and I have different cuttings going on back there, and I fertilize it, and I just feel it every couple of weeks. I'll feel of it. If it starts to feel light, I water it again. But that is basically my whole process of getting the cutting, starting the rooting process, babying it and taking care of it while it's getting the roots, and then up potting it. And I like these little 4-inch tree pots, up potting it with a pre-mix, like this Pro Mix is great. And then I introduced the all-purpose Ivy Organics fertilizer, and it just kicks it into high gear. And especially when you're collecting more expensive or exotic trees, this is like jet fuel, and it just gives you tremendous growth. It gives your plants whatever they need to really just take off and thrive. So that's basically my rooting process. I think I covered all the happy high notes on that. Now that I've fertilized this root stock is an uncommon fig, which means it will not fruit here in Texas, but it's a very vigorous rootstock. So what I've done is I've bud grafted about 5 or 6 different bud grafts onto this tree. At least 3 or 4 of them have taken. We'll find out about the other ones later on. But now that I have these active bud grafts on this tree, this is where the 3-in-1 plant guard comes in. Once these grafts are fully taken, and I just allow the buddy tape to kind of deteriorate, then I use the 3-in-1 plant guard paint, and I paint all the grafts. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to, when I'm ready to put this tree outside, it's going to protect all those graft unions. I have several grafted trees, and this is the product that I use to protect all those graft junctions, because it's really important, especially in the first 2 or 3 or 4 years of that tree. If you, many times a grafted tree is most of my grafted trees cost more than $80 or $90. So you really want to protect that investment, and this is the way to do it. You protect that graft medium. It's going to protect it from the sun. It's going to protect it from scald. It's going to protect it from varmints or anything that wants to chew on it, and it's going to keep the pests away. So I can't say enough about the 3-in-1. I can't say enough about the all-purpose, and I'm very much looking forward to, I used to make my own foliar spray, and it was kind of an involved process, like a 3 or 4 step process. And now I have the all-in-one, and these come ready-made in tea bags, and I can just mix it according to the directions. And I have 400 trees, y'all, so getting a foliar spray that I can make in quantity is just really exciting, because when I spray foliar spray, I'm spraying sometimes like 25 gallons at a pop. So this is a great way that I can do that in a quick fashion, and I know that I'm getting the proper balance that I need. And the big thing with foliar sprays is many times it alleviates your pest pressure, and people don't know that. But the foliar sprays, if you're using them, an organic foliar spray on a regular basis, it's going to, you're going to notice a decrease in aphids and all these other different kind of pests that you normally have, and it's all from just using a foliar spray. Super excited about the foliar spray as well. So I love the comprehensive package of the Ivy Organic products. It's really meeting your needs as a tree grower at every stage and every level, and I'm really pumped about getting to use the new foliar spray.
Texas Dad, that was phenomenal, the demonstration on root cutting, and thank you so very much for showing how Ivy Organics has been a part of your growing successes there at the homestead. I also want to commend you on the concept of, and this is something I haven't seen, is putting the fig cuttings into a sealed plastic bag to help better retain moisture during those weeks while those cuttings take root. And that's an excellent suggestion. Glad you shared that as well. And a lot of those parts that you suggested, the peat pellets, which you mentioned, are also available at texasboys.com, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's great. Additionally, you mentioned that you've got fig cuttings on your windowsill. I would like to better understand why they're and why are they not outside, and what are your suggestions, recommendations in regards to rooting figs, and when do they finally get to come outside?
Well, this is kind of the challenge with rooting is there's an issue when you're rooting in the winter, and it's called fungal gnats. And it's definitely a challenge to those that get really excited about rooting and they start rooting hundreds of cuttings. I remember one year I had over 120 cuttings, and they had all rooted out beautifully, and I put them all in pots. And then I found out about fungal gnats, and that was terrible. And I effectively killed all 120 cuttings. Thankfully, none of them were as expensive as the cuttings that I buy now. But the reason my trees are in the window over there is because it helps me to keep an eye on them, make sure that they're properly hydrated, just watch the leaves so that I can, if I need to intervene either with, and it may even be a fungal gnat treatment, I use an organic product called Natural. And if I start seeing any issues with fungal gnats, I will water it with some Natural, and that eliminates that issue. Another option for fungal gnats is a nematode, and there's a couple different nematodes you can buy that will eliminate fungal gnats. So that's the only one pro tip I'll give you is just be aware that fungal gnats are an issue, and have what you need on hand to address that issue if they pop up. But by keeping them in your window and not doing 120 at a time, you probably won't run into the fungal gnat problem.
Thank you so very much for that. And I just want to also add that one of the reasons that the Ivy Organic annual free fig cutting giveaways in the month of February is fig trees are waking up across the entire southern part of the United States. As the temperatures begin to warm, these trees are beginning to grow. And this is an excellent time to start cutting, start rooting them indoors if you're in a colder climate. within a month, hopefully it's warm enough that you can now transition them out. And maybe it's 2 months if you're further north. And so this is a good time to get your hands on the fig cuttings, start growing them and transitioning them out as they begin to root. In my experience, just as you're doing as well, is starting them indoors where the climate's a little bit warmer, where it's a little bit more humid. And with that bag method as well, you see that being an extra plus for more people being more successful in rooting their cuttings. And lastly, on this topic of rooting, figs, it's not just figs that can benefit from these methods you just taught. You mentioned mulberries. Is there other things that we can propagate by way of the methods you taught us today?
Sure. I mean, you can do blackberries, you can do mulberries, you can do elderberries, almost any type of stick type propagation. You can almost propagate any type of stick type harder wood cutting just like this.
I'm just going to add a few more varieties of fruit trees you can add to that cutting list, which include pomegranates and grapes and also blueberries. So those are other things that if you come across great varieties, or you visit a friend or a neighbor and they've got some good things growing on the property, these are excellent things you can propagate. And towards the end of winter, just before the spring bloom and push, is an awesome time to get those hardwood cuttings and get them rooted. So the Texas boys donated to Ivory Organics dozens of the Violette de Sollies fig variety, but can you share with us what is it about? What does it taste like? How does it grow? What can you share about this variety of fig you've got growing on your property?
The Violette de Sollies is a less common variety. It's definitely a collector's variety. So far, it's one of the absolute best figs that I have. It's a berry fig. The tree is incredibly vigorous, very fast growing. It produces a fig that is larger than normal size, and it gets, a lot of times it'll get like a honey drop in the eye of the fig, and it ages very nice on the tree. It'll start to crack, and you'll give it a squeeze and the skin will start to crack and look just so beautiful. And you'll get that little drop of honey nectar that collects in the eye. And it's a filet mignon variety of a fig, if you can compare the two. It is just an incredible berry tasting fig, an incredibly vigorous tree that grows very well. It roots incredibly easily. And I'm really excited to share this variety with anybody that doesn't have it, because it is killer.
Well, you've got me sold. Share with us how your children are now involved in the Texas Boys homestead.
So my children are exclusively involved. I work an outside job, so I'm gone during the day, and the boys have a website with all of our homestead products. And the really nice thing about Zone 8A here in Texas is we don't, even though it's very cold right now, we don't have to pre-cut our cuttings. So we cut our cuttings to order. So when somebody places an order at thetexasboys.com, the boys get the order, they print it out, they go right outside, they cut it fresh, they put it in a Ziploc bag, and they weigh it, they mail it. My oldest son now has his driver's license. So they cut it, they package it, they ship it, they take it to the post office. So they are completely and totally and utterly involved. It's their business and they make it happen. And, it's really neat to, one, get your kids involved, two, watch them and help them develop an income stream that is from the homestead. It's a family, it's a family process. It's a family project. They're 100% involved, and they literally not only reap the fruit of their rewards by getting to eat the fruit and the food from the Food401K, but they literally participate in the entire process, and they're mailing it straight to you.
I love it. So those figs that your children are propagating, packing, and shipping, there's several varieties that can be found at thetexasboys.com, but it's not just fig cuttings you have available. There's other things in the store too. Tell us about that.
So when it comes to other cuttings, we have a Primark Freedom, which is a primocane blackberry cutting that we offer. We offer a Phoenix Tier Goji cutting. They both root very easily. We offer an Adams elderberry cutting. everything that we sell, we offer several fig cuttings. We offer the LSU Purple, LSU Tiger, the Alma, and the Celeste varieties. Those are the varieties that I have available this year. Next year, it'll be a much broader spectrum and more collective varieties and more expensive varieties. But this year, those are the cuttings we have available. We have 80 hives on the homestead, beehives. So between this property and we have another property that's called Legacy Farm. Legacy Farm is a legacy for our children to have property to build and to continue this legacy of moving forward into the future with the next generation. And the next generation, we're going to preserve the food. We're going to preserve these variety lines of food. We're going to continue to propagate. We're going to bring in the bees and the pollinators. So we have fresh organic honey available on the website. We have homemade organic candles that the boys make from scratch. We have homemade soaps that we source from a homestead mom in Katy, Texas. So she's down near Houston. She makes all of our soaps. Texas mom is making organic laundry detergent, and we've been selling that. We have we roast our own coffee. So we have several different flavors of coffee. The boys also hand blend their own organic tea. So they're busy. These kids are busy. They're staying out of trouble. They're learning life skills. They're making money. They're saving. My oldest has already bought a truck, and his brother, who's only 14, has also bought a truck, and he won't be able to drive for another year or two. And they're using what they're not saving, they're souping up their trucks. And so they got all these different goals. And it's really neat where not only can they write their goals down, but they can use this homestead and what it produces, that engine to drive their goals and dreams and literally watch them become a reality.
I love that story. And you keep on mentioning these 401 food, and the importance of planning and preparing for the future. And I love what you've created. And we're going to touch on that with the follow-up question. But before we do, I know you've also planted in ground over 400 fruit trees so far. And of that, over 100 are fig trees. So 25% of the fruit trees you've got planted on your homestead are figs. Why is that?
Well, tomorrow will be our 8th year anniversary in the state of Texas. We relocated here 8 years ago. And 8 years ago, up until 8 years ago, I had never had a fresh fig. I'd had fig Newtons, and a lot of times when you talk to people about figs, they immediately think of a fig Newton. Some people like fig Newtons, some people don't. Well, at the rental property we were at, the neighbor, in true Texas fashion and style, came over with this entire box, this flat of fresh figs. And she said, "Here, I wanted to bring you all these figs." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And I'm a big fruit fan. So I was like, I proceeded to literally eat almost all of those figs in one setting. So you can only imagine. And that kindled the fire in me. Up until that time, another interesting fact is I had never planted or ever grown anything ever in my life. And that fruit impacted me so much. I said, not only must I have figs, I must grow figs. And that kind of started it. And the thing about figs, especially in our zone 8A, they're very propagatable. They're easy to root. They're easy to propagate. They're very hardy. They're very durable. They come in many flavor profiles. So you have honey figs, you have berry figs, you have the Mount Etna. You can get all these. You have striped figs. So there's all this variety and flavor profile that you get just in one fruit. So I kind of became a fig maniac, and I'm up over 140 varieties now with over 100 trees in the ground.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary also for the 8 years. And
thank you.
And also, as you mentioned, in regards to fresh figs, I grew up with figs as earliest memories. There's always been figs on my property. my grandfather's property, and uncles and cousins all have figs on the property. Like, it's always been an important, plant to have in the backyard landscape. And as you mentioned, eating fresh figs, if you see figs at the store and you're eating those, there is no comparing the two. It's a completely different fruit if you're buying it from the store, having been picked, weeks, if not months ago, compared to something where, and for me, the best experience is picking the figs and eating it right there alongside the tree. That is the sweetest treat. Now, you've mentioned from the beginning this food 401k, and we also mentioned something about DirtCoin. And if you can, I kind of have an idea, as you mentioned, you've got the homestead for the Texas boys, as well as now the second homestead being the legacy farm. So it sounds like this concept is continuously growing. And I encourage those of you that are watching, I'm going to probably remind you one more time, be sure to go to the Texas Boys YouTube channel and subscribe there, hit the push bell notification, and be a part of his growing community. It makes a huge difference to become one of those subscribers and being a part of their success as well. Simply subscribing makes a difference for the good. And be sure to do that, as well as visit their store and see if there's anything interesting there, and be a part of their family experience as well. And thank you again for all that you've shared. But in conclusion, I mean, you've inspired me in so many ways already. Thoughts that I've had, and you've continuously taken to the next level. But share with us the Food 401k and DirtCoin.
Okay, so my background is as a financial planner. That's what I went to school for. And for the first 11 years of my professional working life, I was a financial planner. And I was there, obviously investing other people's money, investing my own money. And in 2008, just before the crash, I observed many things through market analysis and stock and mutual fund overlap that made me concerned about the financial markets and the way in which money is invested and diversified in different things. And at that time, I decided, you know what? I am no longer going to invest in any of these financial market mechanisms and what have you. So I pulled all of my money out of the market. And then, like I said, 8 years ago, we relocated here. And I decided that all of my investments were going to be done in what I coined as the Food 401k. What that is all of the trees and infrastructure that's required to grow food. And when you think about it, the thing about a fruit tree, it's a little bit different than like a green garden that you kind of have to plant every year. You plant this fruit tree one time, you nurture it, you grow it. You can even propagate it to preserve its existence in case, due to different things out of your control, whether it's a deep freeze or a snowstorm, you can continue to carry this tree forward. And you're going to plant this tree one time, and it's going to continue to feed you for 25 years. And not only that, exponentially, especially if you're caring for it properly with incredible products like Ivy Organic provides. When you're using great products like the fertilizer, you're going to literally exponentially increase the production of that tree just by small changes. So this whole concept of this Food 401k is you invest in this infrastructure and it pays you back a multitude of dividends. And when you think about it, it's complete. This is a real investment that's completely inflationary proof. That the cost of an orange that you grow on a tree, you know, if you buy that organic orange in a store, it might cost you $2. Well, next year, that same organic orange might cost you $4. But you're going to go out to your orange tree and you're going to pick, and that orange that tree grows is completely inflationary proof. It's literally putting $4 inflationary, real, not fiat, not greenback, putting real money into your pocket. That is the Food 401k. Now, what is DirtCoin? DirtCoin is the substructure, right, to the Food 401k. We all need dirt, right? And Will Rogers said they're not making any more of it, right? So what we have done is our original homestead that we bought here 7 years ago is 5.5 acres. Now, we intensively planted 400 trees in less than an acre and a half. So y'all, we have 400 trees, most of them planted 6 feet or less apart, okay? And we've tiered our trees so that we create microclimates, and we're going to experiment with different types and varieties and we're going to stretch our growing zone and try to push it hard to expand it, maybe get some of those zone 9A plants in the lower tiered. So that's all part of that Food401K, but we need that dirt coin, right? That infrastructure, that we need the soil to grow the Food401K. You can only do so much in pots. You can only do so much in raised beds. I encourage and let everybody know, go out there and get the dirt coins. So since we purchased our homestead here, 4 years ago, we purchased our ranch, which is 25 acres right up the street. On our ranch, we have some longhorn cattle that we raise for meat. And we have some horses out there that Texas mom, and we can all go on trail rides. We can enjoy life. We can experience nature. We can experience God's creation and get to enjoy all that. On that dirt, we have a pond there that's stocked with fish. We can go fishing. So that's all part of the dirt coin experience. And then just less than 12 months ago, we just purchased Legacy Farm. And what Legacy Farm is, it's a old homestead that's about 40 years old. It's dilapidated, and there's lots of standing hardwoods on it. And that is going to be the future site of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of the Texas boys' future, not just where they're going to live. There's a creek there, but there's all these hardwoods. The boys have reinvested the money from their web store. They bought a Woodland Mills sawmill. So they're actually fabricating and they're converting more of this Food401K from these hardwood trees. And this whole concept and idea, it can continue to compound and compound and grow and grow. And you don't have to feel strapped to this artificial synthetic system of investing. And you don't, the biggest thing, the reason I don't invest in Bitcoin is I do not understand it. And the whole blockchain and encryption and this kind of wallet and that kind of wallet. And I've always been taught, and I've always taught people, don't invest in something that you don't understand. And I'll be really honest with you. I didn't understand fruit trees in the beginning, but you plant 1 or 2, you start caring for them. You study. You subscribe to an awesome channel like Ivy Organics, where you just get this like incredible fire hose of knowledge that's broken down. What attracted me to Charles's YouTube channel is the way that he takes very complex ideas and subjects, and he can break them down into very bite-sized pieces, and he explains it so very well that you can immediately adopt that information and incorporate it into what you're doing and experience like real results instantly. And then on top of that, you put his product in there, and it's just a supercharger to take it to the next level, to grow the Food401K, to develop the microbiome in your dirt coin so that you reap a phenomenal harvest. And then you go to your tree, right? You go to one of your trees and you start cutting it, right? And then you put it in a plastic bag and you ship it across the country and you pay it forward and you get this return on investment. And that's the Food401K.
That's so beautifully said. Not only did we learn about how to root a fig, we also got some financial advice as well. Who would have thought?
I appreciate you having me on, Charles. I appreciate the opportunity.
No, of course. I mean, again, you always blow me away in every opportunity. And I know we've known each other for many years now, and this was definitely the highlight of our interviews. And I'm sure those that are watching as well have gained, if not one thing, hopefully 10 things out of today's lesson, and to continue learning more from the Texas dad and his family. Again, I'm putting up that YouTube channel, and the link will be down below in the video description right at the top, as well as his store. I encourage all of you guys to check that out. And secondly, be sure to check out, if you have not yet done so, is participate in the Ivy Organic annual free fig cutting giveaway, so you can get some of our favorites from our properties to yours, and so you can become a part of this food forest and enjoying, I think, as the Texas dad put best, you're growing money on those trees. And as things inflate and as things cost more, and sometimes they're not available, you'll always have it. And that's another reason that if you can grow, whether it be in the ground, for those of you that are in apartments or condos and you only got a container, consider also container gardening. There's a lot of things you can do with that, and there's a lot of channels there to help you with that as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and if so, be sure to give us that thumbs up as well and share us with your gardening friends and family. As always, keep growing with Ivory Organics, and we're all wishing you happy gardening.
Thanks, Charles. Appreciate you.